Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Lockley's Corner. Today, I'm going to show you how to work on a 1993 Jeep Cherokee. The blower motor's gone bad and I need to replace it. It's a little cold out to not have any heat, so if you stick around, I'll show you how you can do it yourself. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourself. This looks overwhelming. There's crazy stuff in here, so many things. I don't want to touch any of that. All kinds of things could go wrong. Well, they could, but if you're careful and you pay attention, well, then this isn't going to be so hard. So, don't be intimidated. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be changing out the blower motor. The blower motor on most vehicles is located on the passenger side, which is over here. On the firewall, located here, that's what you call a firewall, you'll find down low, usually about down here, that's where your blower motor is. It controls the fan speed in your vehicle. Whether you have air conditioning or just heating, or if you have both, either way, most vehicles have this blower motor and it's accessible down this way. Now, there's a lot of stuff that looks like it's in the way up here. That's not too big of a deal. All we have to do is pull off a couple of things right here and we'll have access to that blower motor and we can pull it out and go ahead and replace it. So, the first thing that's in my way is this right here. That's my windshield washer fluid reservoir. Easy enough to pull off. It looks like right behind this wiring harness we've got two 10mm bolts. Go ahead, get yourself a ratchet with a 10mm head or whatever other tool you have that has a 10mm size on it. And we can go ahead and pull that thing right on out of there. All you have to do is cut a couple of little zip ties, pull this aside, and just here you can see two bolts holding this reservoir in place. Whoa. We need to remove those and then we can get down to work. Once you have these bolts removed, make sure you stick them somewhere so that you don't lose them. You're going to need them again when it's time to put it all back together. And there's bolt number 2. Now, in my case, there's also a third bolt that's located just down here. I have to remove that as well. As you can see here, it's a little loose, but we have to get that third part out or we could break something. As you can see down here, that third bolt that I mentioned is just recessed underneath here. So get yourself a longer extension, and in this case there's a stud that sticks up, so you're going to need a deep socket. Something that looks kind of like that. That way the stud can go in here and you can still get around the nut at the end of your tool. Sometimes you may need a good penetrating lube to break the bolts loose and make them come off easier without causing any damage. This is a brand that I use. It's relatively inexpensive and it can save you a lot of time. Once you've pulled out the little nut that goes down there, go ahead and set that aside too and make sure you don't lose it. In some cases, you can find that other things are also holding this stuff down and together. Look around and see what it might be. If you check your windshield washer fluid reservoir and move it, well, we're disconnected up here and we're partially disconnected down here, but there's that little stud that's sticking out that won't let you completely pull it off. So look around and see what else might be holding it up. In my case, right over here, there's another stud holding this fuse relay center down. We need to pull that off so that it completely releases this so we can get it out of there and get down to what we're after. Never forget, don't lose these things. Now that we have this pried loose, we should be able to get this on out of here. If I were you, I'd go ahead and leave this stuff hooked up. That way you don't have to put it back in later. Just move it aside so that you can get down where you need to be. As you can see, right here, that's the blower motor that we need to get to. Look carefully around it, see what's going on, see if you can sort it out. If you're not sure, always consult the manual. Now, if you look here, there's a plug that goes into that blower motor that we need to take off. There's a little tab right here that you have to gently lift up on and then pull away from the socket to unplug it without hurting anything. Go ahead and use your thumb, lift up on that tab, and then just kind of wiggle it loose and it comes right undone. Now if you look closely in here, you can see here, down here, and over here. There's 3 bolts that need to come out to pull the housing out so that you can replace it with a new one. In our case, these 3 bolts down here are 8mm. So go ahead and get your tool and then we can take these bolts on out of here. Remember, don't lose these. And there's our last one. Now, once you have these 3 guys out of here, you should be able to reach down in there and slowly pull out your blower motor so you can inspect it and replace it. On this blower motor housing, there's a hose attached to the bottom of the motor. You're gonna have to pull that off of there carefully, using your fingers to twist and wiggle until it comes off, and then you can remove the entire unit. Once you have that hose off, you can just gently wiggle this guy right on out of here. And there you go. We have it out. We have to remove this fan here because the part we purchased doesn't come with this fan. So, and then replace the back end of it right here with our new unit. With this fan assembly, it's pressed on. First, you have to pull off this little clamp here using a pair of pliers from around this middle shaft here. Once you get that off, spray some penetrating lube down inside here, right on the middle of this stud, and then very carefully wiggle it back and forth. Eventually, it will come off, and you can take it off and put it on your new motor. Every once in a while, try rotating it and wiggling it from a different direction. Once it's out of there, go ahead and set it aside so you can put it on your new piece. Now don't rush this and don't force it. This here's cheap plastic. You don't want it to break because then you'll have to buy another part. We don't want that. What we want is to save ourselves some money by not breaking this. So go nice and slow and easy and just keep wiggling it. If it still doesn't come loose, spray on some more lube, give it some time, and try again. Don't get yourself frustrated, and whatever you do, try not to break it. Here we have our brand new motor. Now remember how the other one came apart. Take your little fan here, look at the way things are lined up, and go ahead and put those things back together. If you look closely, on that shaft, it's shaped in a certain direction. The fan will only go on one way, so make sure you check that way, get it lined up. It should go on quite easily. Once you have the fan back on your new motor, don't forget this little piece right here. This clamp has to go back around that shaft. And there you have it. That clamp back on the shaft. Let's go ahead and put this back where it's supposed to go. Don't forget about the vent hole located on the motor housing. We need to plug that hose back in to help cool it off. Now that you have your vent hose installed back in the motor, we can go ahead and screw it back in. You remember these screws I said not to lose? Now is the time to stick them back on in. Go ahead and finger tighten them at first to get everything lined up and ready. Take your wrench and go ahead and cinch these guys down. Now, once you have this fan reinstalled, let's go ahead and plug it in and check and make sure that it works before you put everything back together. Remember, take your time and pay attention to what you're doing, and it won't be that hard at all. Now, in the future, don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do it yourself.